Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to review the Sleeper Simulant, which is a new linear fusion rifle which was added in with the Warmind DLC. It is a returning exotic from Destiny 1 and you get it via an exotic quest. So it's not like a new gun, but it's new to Destiny 1. So if you didn't play Destiny 1 then you probably don't really know what the gun's like, which I definitely didn't because I didn't play Destiny 1 at all. So I'm going to go through a few things in this video. First off, how to get the gun. Now I'm sure there's a lot of people who have done guides in this, but in case this is your first time watching a review of it, I'm going to go over how to get the gun, then the perks of the gun, briefly the appearance of the gun, my PvE experience with it, so public events and strikes. I don't do raids, so I'm not going to give my opinion on that, and then also Crucible and my opinion at the end. So first off, how to get the gun. So I believe there's 4 steps to getting this gun. I can't remember all that well because it's been a few weeks, but the first step I believe is complete the campaign. So once you complete the campaign, you'll have another mission to do for Anna Bray, and when you complete that mission, you should get a quest item. This quest item should tell you to kill an X amount of Cabal and an X amount of Hive. It doesn't actually specify how many you need to kill, it basically just gives you a percentage, but you have to kill them on Mars and the percentage goes up pretty slowly. Hive I had no problem with because Hive are basically everywhere in Warmind, or on Mars, but with the Cabal I had a bit of trouble with it, but basically you just go around to spawn spots. So there's one on the bridge when you first spawn into Mars. There's also one at the injection rig site on Mars as well. So there's a couple sites, but you basically should just keep rotating between them. Once you do that, you will get a mission to complete 3 heroic strikes. Heroic strikes are now 350 light, and they do really require you to be a 350 light. You can be carried through them if you're a bit lower than that, but they're really difficult, and it depends on which one you get as to how difficult they are really. But you basically just have to get above 350 or around 350 light. I always say 4-5 to start, so it's been, it took me a while to actually get up to be actually able to do heroic strikes, but it really just depends on what modifiers you have. If you've got blackout, just don't bother doing it if you're like a low light level, but if it's something like get more power ammo and power weapons do more damage, then I'd go for that one, regardless of what the negative one is, unless it is just insta kills or insta deaths from melees, because that's just brutal. So when you get 3 heroic strikes done, it will then tell you to complete 3 waves of escalation protocol and also open 15 sleeper nodes. So when I first read this, I thought, great, I'm never going to do this. But 3 waves of escalation protocol is basically completing wave 1 3 times. It really isn't that difficult if you get a good group of people in, just random people. If you're a solo player like me, basically you just go into Mars, wait for a good few people to go around for like a war/public event, and just activate it whenever. It could be after the event, usually, because people will actually do the worst at public event, and it's not really nice to do it right before it activates, so do it afterwards. People should stick around, teach people to get through wave 1 no problem, and especially after doing heroic strikes. If you get 3 waves done, then it's 15 sleeper nodes. You can do them at the same time, doesn't matter, whatever order you want. But 15 sleeper nodes, if you don't know what a sleeper node is, it is one of those nodes which are just floating around the place everywhere on Mars. You'll get a stem by doing public events. I believe you get 2 stems for doing public events and 1 stem for doing lost sectors. If you combine 3 stems, you get a sleeper node card thing, which tells you where to go on the map, and you'll hear music, your screen will go darker, and when you get close, hold X on it and it will give you items and count 1 point towards your mission. When you complete 3 waves of escalation protocol and you also open 15 sleeper nodes, it doesn't have to be different sleeper nodes by the way, it's just open 15 of them, it doesn't have to be 15 different ones. When you open 15 sleeper nodes and you also complete 3 waves of escalation protocol, it'll then tell you to complete the last mission of the campaign, which is the Zool mission. So it's on 360 light, it recommends 360 light, but I was on like 350 and I had basically no problem with it. I might have died at maximum once, but you just have to be really careful. And if you've done the heroic strikes and you've done a heroic strike version of this mission, then you should really have no problem because you have to go through cautiously, and it's actually easier than the heroic strike I actually found. So once you complete that mission, if you go to Anna Bray, she will give you the Sleeper Simulant, and I am now going to go into the perks. So there's 5 perks for this weapon. There's only 2 that you really need to know about though. The first one I'm not going to try to pronounce, but you see it on your screen, and it makes the weapon's laser over-penetrate enemies and also refract off of hard surfaces. This means that the weapon's able to collateral things basically, and it also refracts off of the hard surfaces. So instead of shooting a laser and the laser bouncing off of stuff, it'll shoot a laser and 5 lasers will bounce off basically. So those 5 lasers seem to do more damage collectively than the singular laser, because if you shoot the event of a injection rig during a public event directly with the Sleeper Simulant, it won't one-shot it, but if you bounce it off of the cover, it'll one-shot it. So it's a bit weird, I'm not exactly sure how it works, but it does seem to do more damage if you refract it off of stuff, but obviously that's not always a practical option. The second perk is Moving Target, and this increases your movement speed whilst ADSing and also improves target acquisition. I think target acquisition means that you have better target assist, so you'll be able to snap on enemies better, but I'm not actually sure. I don't know if it like highlights enemies in red whenever you ADS or something, or in a red outline, but I highly doubt it, so I didn't notice it and I'm not really sure what it does, but it's there, so yeah, I'm not really sure what it does, but I think it just adds, it makes your target assist stronger. As for the other three perks, Polygonal Rifling, Flared Magwell, and Composite Stock basically increase your stability, increases your handling, and also increases your reload speed. So I believe stability means less recoil. Reload speed is your reload speed obviously, and your handling is your ADS time. So it isn't like incredibly fast with ADS time, but it reloads reasonably quick, and it also doesn't allow much recoil. As for the appearance of the gun, if you played Destiny 1 you'll already know what it looks like, and you'll see from the gameplay as well, but just to describe it, it is very similar in design to the Ikelos weapons, or the Ikelos weapons, or however you're meant to pronounce that, and it basically just looks like a Warmind weapon. When you look at it, it just screams Warmind, so that's what it is, and whenever you charge it up or whenever you're trying to fire the weapon, it'll have orange energy flow through it, which is the same energy that Rasputin is made out of, I guess, and the Valkyrie energy as well, so it looks really cool. I think it's one of the best looking weapons in the game, to be honest, but I think that's just because I really like the aesthetics of the gun, the sort of futuristic design and the orange energy flowing through it. So I'm going to go on to actual gameplay now. So PvE, I'm going to go for public events and strikes. So first off, public events. The first public event I'm going to talk about is High Ritual, and this is both on Titan and Mars now. So on both Titan and Mars it one-shots the witches. This is actually really good because it speeds up the event really like a lot. If you didn't have the Seeker Simulant or a weapon that could one-shot the witches, it'd probably take a while to actually start the heroic event, but if you can one-shot the witches it just starts the event, and it's really good, and it just speeds up the event and does so much damage to the witches. But it one-shots the witches basically, and it also does a ton of damage to the Night boss on Titan. However, it doesn't do all that much damage to the Ogre boss on Mars. I'm not entirely sure why this is. It might just be because Mars is a higher light level patrol zone than Mars, or than Titan, but yeah, I'm not exactly sure why that's the thing. It could just be because Ogres take more damage generally, or they're more resistant to whatever sort of damage the Seeker Simulant does, but basically the Ogre takes less damage, the Knight takes more damage. As for the injection rig, it two-shots the Scions from my experience. I think I was three-shotting them, but I wasn't critting them, and my Seeker Simulant was also 349 light, so it is a bit underpowered, so keep that in mind when I'm talking about this stuff. But it two-shots the Scions that you need to shoot in order for the vents to open up. It one-shots the vents if you refract it off of the cover, and two-shots them if you don't refract it, I believe. And you'll see that in the gameplay, it's a bit hard to describe, but you'll see that anyway. And it also does very good damage to the boss, but everyone usually supers the boss and annihilates them anyway in a couple seconds, so it's not really important in that regard. It's really only if you're going to solo the event. But yeah, it does pretty good damage to the boss, but I feel like it's probably just as good as the Warcave coil in that sense. So as for the worst public event, it one-shots the witches, which is just basically identical to the High Ritual event. I think it two-shots the Shriekers if you crit hit them. The crit spot for them is in the eye, by the way, if you don't know that. I only discovered that when I was using the Sleeper. But it two-shots them if you crit hit them, and it yet again doesn't do all that much damage to the Ogre, which just seems to be a running theme with this weapon, but I think Ogres just like absorb energy basically. They absorb damage, so yeah. For the last public event that I did with the Sleeper, the Mining Expedition, there's not much opportunity to actually use the gun in this event, so I used it against the ship and the boss basically. It does about 1000-2000 damage to the ship that you shoot during the Mining Expedition in order to activate the heroic event. This is actually pretty good because a normal weapon does about 33 damage to it, so you know, considering the amount of shots you're going to have to do in order to do 1000 damage, it actually does quite a bit of damage. You're better off probably using a normal rocket launcher because I think that actually does more damage, like the Curtain Call or whatever, but the Sleeper isn't, you know, a bad choice if you don't want to switch off that weapon. And to the boss, it does 1000 damage to the body. I think it does more damage to the head at 2000, and it does approximately 3000 to the crit spot on the boss's back. So it is definitely a good weapon. If you hit him in the crit spot a few times, it does tons of damage, but yet again, people usually super this boss into oblivion, so for public events like that it probably isn't all that practical, but it is pretty useful for the witches and the vents on the injection rig. But yeah, there was one more strike that I did do. I don't think I recorded it, and it's the walker tanks, the fallen walker tanks. If you shoot a walker tank about 3 or 4 times in the leg, it'll drop the orbs and you can get the orbs into the things, get the cannons and do it from there. So it is pretty good in that regard. You can get them down pretty quick, a lot faster than usual, and the catalyst for the Sleeper Simulant is meant to make it take less time to fire, so instead of having like a couple second charge up time, it'll have less time to charge up, which is actually really useful because that's one of the main drawbacks of the weapon, not shooting fast enough. So if you're doing the walker tank public event, for example, and it shoots a lot faster with the catalyst, then you will be able to get the walker tank down in record time basically. So the weapon is generally pretty good for doing damage to bosses, and it's really helpful in public events. I imagine it's good for raids as well, but for what I was using it for, it was pretty good, and it seemed to be better than the Worklift Core in some regards, but the Worklift Core is still a very good choice of weapon. That's the weapon I would usually use prior to this. I'm going to move on to strikes now. I only did a handful of strikes with the Sleeper Simulant equipped though, so I don't really have all that much to say for this, but in heroic strikes it does quite a lot of damage to enemies that aren't yellow bars. It'll one-shot usually any enemy up to orange bars, and it'll probably two-shot orange bars at max. Once it gets to yellow bars, which are usually the bosses, it really struggles there, but in the Mercury Strike, which is in the Infinite Forest, I forget the name of it, it does a ton of damage to the Cabal boss, and it basically two-shots him each wave, and it's really fast in that regard. I did use the Sleeper in the Nightfall version of Inverted Spire. I was trying to do it solo and I actually succeeded, surprisingly enough, but it did about 7,000 damage to the boss when I hit him in the head, and I did this a couple times. In the grand scheme of things, the boss has a ton of health, so it doesn't do all that much damage, but it definitely helps because your gun usually does like 30-ish damage to the boss anyway, so it does do a ton of damage and it does help, but you're probably better off with the likes of Darcy or something for that occasion. But personally, I think the weapon is actually really good. It is one of the best weapons in the game. It's my favourite weapon, and for PvE at least it is incredible, and even though it might be outclassed by the likes of the Darcy, I'm not exactly sure because I haven't used it since the buff it got. Even though it might be not as useful or not as versatile as like the Worklift Core or something, it is extremely fun to use, and it's well worth the grind basically, and it just looks awesome. I used it a handful of times in Crucible as well, mainly because it was just so difficult to get power ammo because everyone just camps around the power ammo whenever it's nearly finished, and I didn't want to do that. I was able to use it a handful of times. I was able to get a collat with it. I don't know if that was from the initial laser hitting 2 people or if the initial laser hit 1 person and the refraction hit another person, but I got a double with it, and then I also killed someone else insta-killing people. So essentially in Crucible it one-shots people, it can collat people, and the refractions also kill people, so it's a really good weapon. You get 2 shots a magazine, you get 2 shots with it, so you don't get all that much ammo, but if you use it on a flag or something you're able to refract it or line people up. It's actually really useful, and I think it's really fun to use. Obviously there's better weapons like a launcher or something, but to be honest, the Sleeper is really fun to use, so that's the main reason why I was using it. As for my opinion of the weapon, I actually love this weapon. I think it's because it looks so cool in design. I'm a really big fan of the futuristic design, the Warmind design, and the orange energy flowing through it. It sounds amazing when it fires. It also does a ton of damage, and whilst yes, it might be outclassed by a couple other weapons, like I know there's a shotgun which obliterates people, I think it's a raid shotgun which obliterates enemies, but to be honest, the Sleeper Simulant is just a really good weapon. It's really fun to use and I just love it, and the grind, if you're wondering, was well worth it. It does take a while to actually get the exotic quest finished for it, but I think that's mainly just because I was such a low power level. If you're in the 350s already, then you probably have no problem doing it, but it took me a couple of weeks because I wasn't high enough power levels, so that's about it. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I know I probably didn't do the best job of describing it, but I'm trying to get better at this sort of stuff. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider leaving a like, maybe even subscribing, and if you do want to give the video a dislike, because I know some people might not like the video or whatever, please give me constructive criticism because I do want to improve obviously. So yeah, but that's about it. So thanks for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye.